This is day 3. Day 1 was the day when we were unable to meet for worship in our buildings as a result of the current crisis. Welcome. This morning I was at prayer and I was with a passage in Matthew's Gospel, Matthew chapter 8 verses 5 to 13. And I'm going to read it from the New Revised Standard Version. When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came to Jesus, appealing to him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed in terrible distress." And he said to him, "I will come and cure him." The centurion answered, "Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and the slave does it." When Jesus heard him, he was amazed and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and will eat with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the heirs of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you according to your faith." And the servant was healed in that hour. Jesus has just come down from the Mount Hermon, where he has offered what we know as the Sermon on the Mount, an extensive body of teaching. And in Matthew's Gospel, on his way down, with the crowd following him, he's stopped by a man with leprosy, a man who's an outcast, a man who's greatly feared, and I imagine the crowd giving him plenty of social distancing. He asks, nay, he begs for healing. And Jesus does the unthinkable. He touches the untouchable and heals him. And now, as he enters Capernaum, which is his home base, it's where he's operating from, he's stopped by a Roman centurion. Now, this person's a foreigner. He would be seen by many as an oppressor, as one who's been sent to keep order, to keep the peace by the Romans, but it's a Roman peace and it's always in Rome's best interests. He would likely be hated and feared by many, and perhaps respected and loved by others. He's been sent to do a job for his emperor. And yet he recognizes, as he recognizes authority and the chain of command, he recognizes a higher authority in Jesus. I want to suggest even higher than the authority of Caesar. He addresses him as Lord. "Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof." Lord. He comes, I want to suggest, in helplessness and in faith. He can't fix what's wrong. He recognizes that. But he knows with a quiet and deep confidence that Jesus can. He comes in compassion and in humility. He sees the suffering of his servant. The word that's used here for servant, actually in the Greek, describes a prepubescent child, probably a boy, and one who is his attendant, one who runs his messages for him and does the things he's required. Likely, almost certainly, an Israelite, one of the local people. And it strikes me that he is likely to also be easily replaceable. And yet we see him described as lying at home paralyzed in terrible distress. For the centurion, this boy is not a commodity. He's not simply a piece of property. He is a human being for whom he has affection, love and respect. And toward him he exercises genuine compassion and concern and is willing to do what he needs to secure this boy's healing. He's willing to publicly humble, I want to suggest almost humiliate himself out of care for this child. He could simply have had him cast aside, I would presume, and just get another one. This boy is paralyzed and in distress. And there's something in the heart of the centurion that wants to see this boy healed and made whole. So he doesn't cast him aside. He comes to Jesus and he makes an extraordinary statement of faith. He affirms his own authority and the authority under which he himself stands. But he also recognizes Jesus' greater authority and pleads for him to use it. Now, what does Jesus do? He holds the centurion up as an example of faith. He recognizes his heart. He recognizes his compassion. He recognizes his humility. And he recognizes his helplessness and dependency. And he honors all of it. He affirms that it's this dependency that God responds to. Over the past weeks, I've repeatedly quoted Julian of Norwich, where she says, God is the ground of our beseeching. It is God who evokes that within us, that place where we come to the end of ourselves and recognize the depth of our need and the inability that we have to solve the problems that we face. That they're just too big. That the obstacles are ones we just can't get around on our own. That the difficulties are just too hard for us to surmount. And that God is in that sense of knowing of our neediness and desires that we bring it to himself. And it's in this place that our need is met. It's in this place of desperation that we can discover the presence and the grace and the goodness of God. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get what we want. I have a quiet confidence, though, that there's a place that we get what we need. And all that's required is that we bring it before him. And so we see the centurion. This man who presumably, from a worldly point of view, has every reason to be proud. Has every reason to think that he commands and can command. Yet in his humility, in his love, in his desperation, and in his faith, his quiet underpinning confidence that Jesus has the capacity to make a difference, he comes to Jesus and he lays himself before him and he pleads for help. I want to suggest that in these times, as we face the days of uncertainty ahead of us, days that for many of us will hold considerable anxiety and fear, that we learn, as the centurion did, to bring it to this higher authority, this one who's able to calm our fears, able to assure us of his presence, of his healing love, of the warmth and generosity of his commitment to us. may each of us in these uncertain days be aware that indeed underneath are the everlasting arms that will hold us up, that will carry us, that will see us through this. It's not about our being good enough. It's not about us being of a special tribe. It's about us actually recognizing our need and being prepared to bring it before God and seeking help. May you know His provision. God bless you. Amen.